Is this thing on? Please excuse me. I must make an urgent phone call via my direct line to James Gunn. Yes, I have a James Gunn hotline. How exciting is this? I just want to talk to him about all these rumours about Superman test screenings. Wow, it's so exciting, isn't it? Dun, 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 dun. Boom, 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 boom. There's a ring. There's a tone. It's ringing. James, it's you! So great to hear those beautiful dulcet tones of yours, James. All right, mate, calm down. I forgot you live on another planet called California, and it's night time over there, and it's morning here in Cyprus. All right, I'm sorry. No, don't go. We need to talk. What do we need to talk about? Your movie, right? So apparently your Superman movie is hugely episodic and experimental. And wow, I couldn't be more excited about this. Oh, you're quite welcome, James. What do I think the other fans will make of the movie? Oh, they're going to hate it. You know this generation. You know movie Twitter by now, James. They hate anything that's different. Just ask Zack Snyder. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. You can follow me on X Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X, on TikTok Mad Mickey's World, and on Snapchat BMouth60 Mick, your host with the most. A very warm welcome to Sunday's edition of the DCU Daily. Yes, I've never seen so many leaks from a movie come from a test screening before. And before we start talking about even more leaks from these test screenings of this movie, again, what they do with test screenings, they obviously, you must know there's so many different edits of one movie when they finish shooting it. They then do a multitude of test screenings to see which edit lands better. And that's what James Gunn's Superman movie is doing right now. None of these edits will probably be the final edit. What they do, they take the feedback and then they look what they need to change, if anything. Obviously, if every edit has a negative reaction, then your movie basically isn't very good and they don't like what you've done to the movie, and editing it won't help you. And editing can save a terrible script and a terrible movie, don't get me wrong. So many leaks, so many rumours. So what we're hearing back and what my sources are telling me and what I'm seeing on X Twitter, I don't even need sources anymore. It's everywhere. It's on Reddit, it's on X Twitter. It's insane. So we're getting kind of this thing that the tone is very, very silly, but that the movie is very episodic and experimental. What does this mean? It means Superman flips from one thing to the other. He's fighting a kaiju maybe, and then you see him doing something else, then doing something else, and I don't know this for sure because people haven't given me exact feedback on this, but it looks like we're flitting from one thing to the other without it being connected to one story. Now, what we don't know and what I don't know is, does this go on for the entire movie? Now, I found it kind of interesting when I first saw the teaser trailer, and I started to think that maybe Superman narrates through this movie. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, well, you know what narration is, someone speaking over the pictures you're watching. Now, if you remember the early seasons of the Flash TV series starring Grant Gustin, Grant would narrate as Barry Allen. He would narrate over it. And I think that David Corenswet's character could be doing the same thing in this movie. Now, one of the things I asked for when I heard James Gunn was making a Superman movie, I didn't want to watch Superman 78 again. I didn't want to watch Man of Steel again. I didn't want to watch Smallville again. I wanted to watch something new. The thing about Man of Steel, it's highly experimental and it's not tickling anyone under the chin. Now, All-Star Superman is also very, very episodic if you've ever read that comic before. So it looks like this film will be hugely experimental, right? If we believe the rumours, and we don't know, And I know for some fans, you're very frustrated, all these leaks coming out. As I say, I've never heard so many leaks coming out from a movie before. Could this be done purposely by the studio to create hype? And also, maybe the reason they're leaking out what this movie is because they want people to be prepared. Because if you can imagine, right, a movie that is very episodic and kind of jumps from one thing to the other can be very, very problematic to the audience, because it's great doing that in a comic, but even in a TV show, that could actually work. You could do that from week to week. But to do something that's episodic in movie form, I can't remember that ever being done. And if they actually are flitting from one thing to the other, and none of it's really connected, now don't forget, this could be the reason that James Gunn skipped the origin story and decided to have, us meeting Superman a year after he first became Superman, so he could be kind of looking back at his adventures so far. Maybe, I don't know. So having a film that's very, very highly episodic is going to be a shock to the audience's system. Now imagine being the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, seeing the first edit, which he did see months and months ago, and thinking, bloody hell, this is different. But David Zaslav, would have read the script before it was shot. Yes, he would have. And I think when he saw the script, he thought, wow, this is groundbreaking, this is episodic, and I think this is why Gunn got the co-CEO's job at DC Studios. When Zaslav first read the script, he probably thought, wow, this is different, this is interesting, this guy's got brains. This is a brilliant idea to have this guy in charge of DC Studios, or be the co-CEO of DC Studios. And I think the script is what won Gunn the job. Now, as I did on my gag, I believe this is going to be a very different, difficult thing to sell to the public. Because as we know, we are in the middle of a movie-going audience that hates anything that's different. They're so obsessed with peak MCU. They're so obsessed with nostalgia. Anyone who does something original and different kind of gets rejected. This is what happened to Zack Snyder. They rejected Man of Steel. They rejected what Goyer and Nolan and Snyder brought to the table because it was darker, because it was different. It wasn't like the Superman they grew up with. So we know how people today reject anything bold and experimental and new. But I'm telling you that I actually like the idea of this. Now, of course, it's all about the execution. I may not like the movie when I see it, but from what people are saying to me, it does sound bold. It does sound different. It does sound experimental. These are the reasons that I love Man of Steel. This is what I asked for, something different. Now again, like Man of Steel and BVS, when you want to attract a general audience, you probably shouldn't be doing something like this. But for me, as a storyteller and someone who's writing a film myself called Saving Judy Garland, I think it's important to be experimental and to be bold, because telling stories should be a gamble and you should never play it safe. The problem with new Hollywood today, they're playing it too safe and it's backfiring, because every film is kind of made by committee. It's sent to a multitude of test screenings like Superman is. And by the end of it, the boldness and the experiment of it is lost because the studios get scared that the audience are going to reject it. And I personally hope that James Gunn stands his ground. If he's done something as bold and as experimental as it sounds like he's done, I hope he sticks to his guns. The problem with Gunn is he's a very studio kind of guy. He will bend the knee a little bit. And we know how he didn't complain when they put the Suicide Squad on day and date. And we saw what happened when Nolan was screaming about other films being day and date. They didn't even put his film Tenet on day and date, and he went ballistic because he's all about the cinematic system and preserving it. The problem with the cinematic system, with the old television system, even streaming, it's prehistoric now, and the kids are not interested in it. Gen Z, the younger generation, don't see cinema and television or even streaming as something new and fresh and innovative. What they see as innovative is TikTok and Snapchat. They can go and watch videos, they can see mini movies, look, there's people making their own stories on TikTok. You can do anything on TikTok. You can make a mini 5-minute movie on TikTok. I can go on there. I do videos on there. I do content every day. You can do anything you want. Now, we are the storytellers. We create our own narratives, whether we're talking about issues in the real world, movies, or whatever. And kids just don't go to cinemas anymore. Teenagers don't go to cinemas. They don't have interest in cinemas. To get kids back in cinemas, you have to make things that are so good that kind of blow their minds. And how do you do that? How do you get into the mentality of this younger generation? And this is the problem. It's changed the game. They're talking about doing new things in cinemas, right? It doesn't matter what you do. You won't get kids in cinemas unless they want to go to see great movies. And you're not delivering that. One of the things that we had as kids, and one thing that movies have lost today is fun. It's not fun to watch a movie anymore. The Gremlins was fun. Ghostbusters was fun. Police Academy was fun. Aeroplane was fun. And even though E.T. was a serious film, it had fun elements to it. Same with Back to the Future. It's not fun to watch a movie anymore. And that, my friends, is part of the problem. So I love serious movies like Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. But I also feel that movie makers today, directors, filmmakers, take themselves too seriously. Like this Alex Garland geezer who did that Civil War. It's about the real world. It's about Trump. Yeah. With Times Today, these are the type of stories we've got to tell. And they made some money. There was some interest to it. It wasn't a disaster or anything. It was made on a small budget, so they could get away with a smaller audience and pretend it's hugely successful. That's what they do. But they take themselves far too seriously. So kids want fun. When kids go on TikTok, on Snapchat, they talk to each other. They have fun. They can banter. They can create their own narrative. And the narratives they're seeing in cinema and television and streaming are boring the hell out of them, so they're simply not interested. And this is my point. If James Gunn's movie is hugely experimental, because don't forget, Gunn's quite smart actually. If it is episodic and it flips from one thing to the other, that's a good thing for the kids. Let me tell you why. Because young people today haven't got long concentration. They don't have a lot of concentration. So, and this is the problem, because they've been trained on explosions and CGIs and things like that. They haven't been brought up on talky movies like we were. You know, we were brought up on things like Dances with Wolves and things like that, and JFK, and really talky movies. This generation, when they see talky movies, they say there's pacing problems when there's a lot of talking in a movie. I know it's ridiculous, and modern day younger critics say these things as well. So I think maybe James Gunn has thought about the younger generation. By flitting from one thing to the other, you may keep their attention. So this could be a very, very smart move by James Gunn. Let me reiterate something I've always said. I'm not happy what's happened to the industry. I'm not happy how they treated Snyder. I'm not happy how they treated Snyder's cast. The whole thing was despicable. Lying about bringing back Cavill, then not bringing him back, was bad behaviour. But here's the thing. If I was a strong-minded guy, I would boycott this movie, because the industry is not treating its audience with respect and intelligence. If I had any morality, I wouldn't go and watch this movie. But here's the thing. I don't have that kind of strong, upstanding decency. So I'm not going to boycott this movie. I love DC, I love movies, and if the guy's made a great movie, I'm going to say he's made a great movie. If he's made a bad movie, I'm going to tell you that as well. This is the great thing about this platform. It's ours because we speak the truth, like ordinary fans should.